Okay, it's 10 o'clock Singapore time, so let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, and good very morning for some of you guys. And thank you so much for joining this first Markforged series webinar. And today we are talking about electronics. And just want to mention that in this series webinar, we'll have a list of 6 webinars, and it will cover all different application industries. And we picked electronics at the first one, and there is a reason for that. So stay tuned with us, then you will see that what is the reason behind in the next few slides. Okay, go on. So today's presenter will be myself. I'm Lee Chen from Singapore and application engineer for Markforged. And together with me, we got Anthony Rosengren in Australia, also is my peer. He's application engineer in Markforged. And lastly is our customer, Jonathan from Intellidesign, but unfortunately today he got other like a major business in his company, so he do a pre-record for his interview, so you still be able to see what are the application or what are the look in this Intellidesign, how they apply Markforged solution. And nevertheless, also we got our superstar Richard Alvin with us here. So in the Q&A session at the last few minutes, then if you have any question about Markforged or Intellidesign's application, feel free to reach out. Or at the same time, definitely you can put your question in the Q&A under this. There's a toolbar in Zoom. There's a Q&A session, so you can put your question there. Then we will answer that together at the end of this presentation. Cool. So first thing I want to say that actually because of the COVID, everyone is still living in a very dynamic world, and it's changed very rapidly. And the consumer demands for immediacy, necessities, last mile supply chain, and also some niche business can only grow with more offering and highly concentrated customization for your customers. And definitely last year, the pandemic, until now, the pandemic drive a lot of new product development and requirements, and the demand become more and more, less and less predictable. And also volatile labor conditions. You have many skilled labor. Actually, you're not able to like get enough skilled labors for your like a CNC milling or for like a molding. And also the next generation, actually more and more people are expecting to do more things rather than just technical, right? So you probably cannot find a very good candidate for the younger age that have such a good technical experience, right? And also it gives this new pandemic, it gives the new labor and working a certain constraint. And also supply chain constraint is, we see a lot of vendors, if let's say they are from overseas, and then they can't really give you the part on time, or even you yourself can't give your customer products on time because of the pandemic happen, right? So supply chain is not recent as we once thought. So we see many things happen last year, like a lot of factories shut down, and labor shortage, and also people out of the job. And then the intercontinental logistic breaks single point of failure and inhibit our ability to get basic item like bleach and toilet paper. Like people try to run out for getting those toilet paper and queue for it, and no redundancies in the supply stream architecture, and one small hole unravels the entire fabric. An unsuitable emergency response mechanism. We no longer have the domestic infrastructure, and everything actually is like global thing. And once this supply chain breakdown, we realize the only rely on domestic is not able to fulfill our demand. There's not enough supply, and it could be untenable to stock supplies for responding to all disaster scenarios. Also, lastly, insufficient responses to demand signals, like very long lead time makes it impossible to make more things quickly as a result of demand suddenly spike up. And also slow to adopt the new product requirement. Like example, you see like BYD, like they are automotive company, then now they shift to mass product, the face mask production also. That is uh, how how urgent the demand is, and it try to recall and try to urge all the factories or manufacturing factories to change their product in a quicker manner. But still, we do see those uh, phenomenal in last year because of COVID. Right. So what we see in the supply chain, conventional supply chain, weigh us down, and they make us slow and expensive to source some unique, or we might say like customized parts. And usually for all the supply chain, we'll go through like this flow. It starts from sourcing for raw material, and then it goes to manufacturer, and then manufacturer will pass to the regional distributors, and the regional distributors will find the vendors locally, and the vendors actually and will pass to the end user. And there's actually a list of raw material supplier, and also the list of ESD the parts or the material manufacturer, and also the material distributor as well. And together, actually, still in this kind of complex supply chain, it builds up the challenges. One thing is shrinking the operating margin, and second thing is it complex the global supply chain is pretty complex, like because procurement need to find more and more different vendors, and somehow they can find some overseas vendors, and they make the whole supply chain become even complex. And for one product, you need to have multiple material and multiple parts, components to assemble that, become one product, right? So the supply chain will be very, very complex. And the thirdly is service and warranty management. This is also one of the risks that people are facing. And the short product life cycle and uncertainty demand, like just now mentioned, like in the COVID, like suddenly some product demand spike up, some product just dramatically decline. And also lastly is sustainability. How this current supply chain can really subsistent for you to endure all the different kind of scenario or different kind of situations. Because I stay in Singapore, so I want to take an example at Singapore that for electronics industry particularly, that Singapore is still considered expensive in a way that the cost is still higher than comparing with our neighbors in Southeast Asia. And because of that, this is one of the news in 2013 that Western Digital actually cut the 500 people's job in Singapore and shift the whole production line to Thailand to find a more cost-effective way to manufacture their parts. And still, actually, although in that case, still in electronics, for Singapore, we still have quite a lot of numbers. People are in this field, electronics industry, and building the parts and to serve all over the world. But in short, yeah, Singapore is still considered as one of the expensive ones. So it could be tooling costs, or it could be like downtime is higher because of the labor. And also third thing is we are a small nation here. Sometimes like similar like other countries, we have to rely on the overseas supply to get the part down, and they need to be imported. But however, if you look at the industry in general, this is on the left side is a quote from Enterprise Singapore. So it's saying that the whole industry for electronics is about 90 billion Sing dollar, and it's over a quarter of Singapore manufacturing GDP. So it's still one of the very big portion for Singapore economies. And there's more than like almost 3,000 companies, and the Singapore export more than 80 billion US dollars worth of semiconductors and electronic integrated circuit to the world in 2016. And this is comprised almost 10% of global electronics and semiconductors exports. So by saying that, it means that Singapore also play a very huge role in the global electronics industry. And on the right side is another organization, government organization called EDB Singapore. It says that the projection of this Singapore electronics industry will reach to even higher portion in 2020, and it will go even higher. And yeah, let's go back to what we good at. So you may ask that how Markforged can really add the value to your current electronics production line, and what is on what basis and what is that based on? It's because that our technology is a more advanced 3D printing process with automated printing with cloud-based software. And by saying that, the material itself, you can use continuous fiber reinforcement, which can give you a very strong, unique strength, although it's made by non-metal material, but it can give equivalent strength like metal material. And also for metal side, we can print like 6 different kind of metal at this moment, and both composite and metal, it can be applied on the same platform by using one cloud software to control it. And lastly, we're going to launch a very good machine learning that we are learning from all the like more than 10,000 machines all over the world, that their behavior, their operation conditions, and keep improving this machine's operation level. And so that when you have your machine, as long as it's online, then you can have more or even better performance day by day. So ideally, to this very disruptive or very dynamic supply chain changes in last year, what we see to solve this problem is we can use our cloud framework, which ideally you will have maybe, if let's say you are a company have multiple sites in multiple countries, you might have one person to in charge of all the parts in one location from cloud only, and all those parts will be stored on the cloud. There's no physical storage for you to do to store the raw material or store the part. And then whenever if certain plant, if let's say Australia, Brisbane, they have one part need to be built, but also Singapore, they have another part need to be built. And this person, maybe he stay in Japan, but he can send the part through cloud and to the operator in Brisbane and Singapore. And then when the person have the design, and they just use the same exactly 3D printer and to print it out to make sure the quality is exactly the same, follow the company standard, then it can get the job done and eliminate all the hassles on supply chain, like logistics, like storing, like paperwork. So it gives you a very good, it gives you a real immediacy. Whenever you need a part, just by one click, your site will have this part be ready to print out, then that's it. And everything goes by digital. There's no physical inventory. You don't need to hold like additional cost for holding the physical parts to satisfy the demand. And organization-wise, one person or let's say one team, it can be well organized everything, and whenever they need, you can put like a logo or put the information on that digital file itself. And when they print it out, it's still trackable. And also because cloud-based security maybe could be an issue, Markforged is by far the only 3D printing organization that offer ISO 27001 certification. It's a cybersecurity certification. So we are able to ensure that your design and your data will be safely stored in the cloud. And also it's a real-time improvement. Like I mentioned just now, that whenever you have this part be ready, or whenever you want to print the part, your machine actually, as long as it connect to cloud, it will give on-time improvement, and we will improve your machine on the backstage on the back end on helping you to improve, like upgrading your software, upgrading your firmware for your machines to make sure you always get the part better and better. And how this is going to relate to electronics industry. And recently we launched a new material. The answer is the Onyx ESD material. And this is really going to drive the Markforged solution to help the electronics friends and customer to make it better. So here's a short video about introduce it. All right, so this leads to my second topic is I'm going to introduce ESD and why ESD is the one that helping electronics industries. So first thing I would say, normally when we talk about ESD is only like electronics or electric cars. Now why that's so important? Here's an example that for ESD, if you don't have a well-controlled ESD or suddenly didn't wear those protections, here's something will happen on the chips or on the electronic components. Because of the accumulated electron, it suddenly give a spike on the part and they damage the part. And to avoid those problems, usually in the ESD, in the electronics production floor, you'll see people wearing the coat or wearing the safety shoe. But all this actually is try to disconnect the electron to move the electron from human to the part, or straight away let the electron to flow to the ground so that it won't accumulate to the electronics component. And definitely, I think in the future, besides the coat and the shoes or the table, there's a mat. You will see more Markforged Onyx ESD in the production floor. And why our material is so unique? We do a comparison with other 3D printing material, and in fact, for ESD property, is only stands between 10 to power 4 to 10 to power 11 this conductiveness, and below that it will be so-called conductive, like a copper or aluminum, or beyond that it will be like insulative, and totally it won't transfer much electron. So there's a reason that we have to store within this range. And comparing with some other 3D printing FDM or FFF filament that they provide ESD properties, some of them maybe is like a 5 to 8 level, and some of them maybe is 5 to 11 level. But for us, we are more precise. We will keep ourselves the material range between 5 to 7. Okay, then I want to share some success story with you on using this ESD material. So this is a company in Singapore. What they require is they want to have like an anti-static ESD PCB tray to store all the PCBs, small PCBs like a fingertip size. And they use for automation assembly line inside. And usually, as you see on the picture, they can use like dozens of parts in one production, in one run, in one lines. And currently, what they use is, previously they already are using our part. Now, previously, what they use is they use the machine tray, and that tray is made by aluminum, and then it cooked with ESD properties, and then it costs like 160 Sing dollar, approximately like 120 USD. And they need to get there's MOQ also, so customer need to keep stock for that. It has to be 100 pieces minimum, and the vendor told them because everything is by CNC milling. It need to take about a month to fabricate everything and pass to you. And with now that we tried exactly the same design, and we use the Onyx ESD with continuous carbon fiber reinforcing inside this part, it able to meet the surface resistance like the ESD level that they require, and also at the same time we reduce the cost, lead time, and there's no more inventory. In terms of the cost itself, our material cost comparing with their cost is only like we reduce like 60%, and replace the part on demand without any constraint or any they don't have to rely on their overseas vendor any longer. All right, second case is Columbia Electronic from Europe. And what they require is a ESD safe fixture for electronic components for testing. So this is a testing board, and whenever they have this new product they want to do testing, they need to put on this testing board. And all the fixtures here in black color is all printed by our Onyx ESD. So previously their solution is still the same. They have to do the machine the fixtures, and because of the machining, there's certain geometry limitation, because they want to build a faster manner, and doesn't really care about the geometry as long as it work will be fine, but never thinking about optimizing it. And then they also restricted by using a very limited machinist time, like operator, CNC. Actually, you can do a more valuable job rather than the tooling itself, right? But everyone is queuing for like few CNC machine that they have. So that's the problem they're facing. And somehow they try to outsource to 3D printed ESD safe part, and logistically it's very challenging. And most of the surface that they try, they realize the surface of the ESD material, the printed part, is not as good as what they thought, and the geometry accuracy wise is way off than the CNC. And after that they realize we have Markforged, we have a ESD material, and they want to just give a try. And eventually they were able to see that our material is meet the initial ESD safe requirement, and with less cost, labor, and effort. So more importantly is the precision comparing with other 3D printing service that they get from other vendors. It have a more accurate, and that which can support them on doing the assembly, and also improve the test efficiency, because no need to do any post process. The precision itself is good enough for them already right after print. So like I said, we have so many printers. Like right now is already 12,000 printers in the world, and all those operating behaviors we will try to learn at the back end. We'll try to improve your machine's capability and machine's performance. And right now we already, for all the customers together, we already print like more than 10 million parts within 73 countries. All right, and the last sharing will be Intellidesign, and they are the customer for our Mark II printer, and they are an Australian Queensland customer, and they are more important, they are from electronics industries. So I will later play a footage of how their factory looks like, and where is their machine parked, and how they use the machine with an interview. So there you go. Yeah, we'll mention about this housing, the PCB housing mode as well. So let's first see the virtual tour inside the Intellidesign. I believe some of the audience here will feel very familiar, because this is like very typical electronics production flow looks like.
Hi everyone, hi Li Chen. We have an interview after this footage. So we noticed that the audio was a little bit laggy with the previous video. So we'll see how this goes with your recording, Li Chen. If not, I have another alternative way of showing the video.
Okay, so you want to show that video now?
I will see how yours goes, and I'll let you know if the audio is lagging.
Right. Okay. So you mean I just skip this part? Is it? Okay. There's another short video. Is the office looks like, and actually just now you didn't see our Markforged machine, right? Because it's actually inside the office area.
Just because I don't.
Yep. And this is a printer that in the last thing that you see is actually at the corner of the office. The engineer is operating it. Yeah. So in short, I would say you will see many applications in electronics floor, and the machine itself is office environment friendly, and it's very easy to use. So where to find those applications? So I will leave that to the interview with Intellidesign that we do record before.
Thanks so much, guys, for joining us today. Today we have Intellidesign on the line with us, and we have Jonathan Tai, we have Anika, and Andrew Baston here to explain a little bit about their business and how they're incorporating high-strength additive manufacturing. So I'll hand it over straight away to Jonathan. Jonathan, could you please quickly just introduce yourself, your role, as well as Anika and Andrew, and tell us a little bit about Intellidesign and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm head of industrial design here at Intellidesign. Andrew's part of our industrial design team, and Anika is one of our young and upcoming engineers focused in design and engineering. Intellidesign is a electronics design and manufacturing company based here in Brisbane. We're about 95 people. We offer services on the design and engineering side right through to manufacture a product. Our design and engineering group is about 25, 30 people in the organisation.
Great. So based in Brisbane, local manufacturer, all that sort of stuff. So I guess moving on, to additive manufacturing, what sort of prompted you to go down the additive manufacturing route? And what did your business look like before you went down that route?
So we outsourced almost all of our physical prototyping. So we don't have any CNC machining or anything like that in-house. So we were sourcing all of that. Prior to getting a printer in-house, we went through a period of about 12 months where we said, okay, we're looking at getting a printer. Let's aggressively print outside and see how much we'll actually use the service. And it became pretty apparent that we reached an appropriate time to procure a printer for the kind of work we were doing, so we did that. That was a few years ago now. For actual use of the process, so it gets used in several facets of the organisation. Certainly design process gets used every day. in production jigs and test jigs. We use the printer extensively for making one-off tools and jigs to support production work. And for a small number of projects, in very specific cases, we'll even produce production parts on the machine. So we use it in all those different applications.
So quite a wide range.
Yep.
And we also have Lee Chen here, who's another applications engineer for Markforged, and he had a couple of questions to follow on some of those applications related questions, and just the idea of moving towards, I guess you could say, in Industry 4.0. Lee Chen, I'll hand it over to you to continue.
Thank you, Anthony. So I don't have much question, but basically just few questions. I want to understand better about your current process versus the previously conventional way that you get the parts, like prototypes and tools and use product. So if let's say you have jigs and fixture, then right now you can use Markforged to print, but just wondering that before that, what is the process and how many steps you have to go through?
Look, I think we've got an example. Andrew, do you want to talk to, here's a production jig we've got at the moment. Do you want to talk to what we've done with this one and what we would have done in the past to make this thing?
Okay, so as Jonathan mentioned, this is a production jig. In a short summary of what we have here is we have an assembly made up of both 3D printed components, as well as some stand off the shelf components, as well as some high precision machined parts. So what we have here is Jonathan is essentially a standard off the shelf part. However, we need to make some modifications to this. I'm not sure you can see, but there are a series of holes running along the front there.
Would you have closer, because I can't see it very clearly. Thank you so much.
So we essentially need to make sort of a short run. I guess you could call it a very short manufacturing run. It's still sort of used in a prototyping.
About 100 pieces.
Yeah, but in terms of prototype, it's quite high quantity. So the precision was important for these as well. So what we did here is we have designed a jig which allows us to punch those holes in that part in a way that is repeatable and to an acceptable tolerance.
It happens in so we've got a single piece flow or lean production line, so it just happens in the line at a general bench. So it's
so it's something that can be done by somebody who hasn't been given a significant amount of training. It's designed in a way that you can really put it in one orientation, and then all you need to do is apply pressure, and the jig will essentially eject the part automatically after making holes. So sorry,
so we've used traditionally this would have been an all metal jig, would have had machined aluminium with some steel inserts, whereas this time.
Yeah, so essentially, as you mentioned, we have probably the majority of this is 3D printed, with the exception of some of the parts which we work some slightly different material properties. So I guess the value that we achieve from 3D printer here is that we're able to get the very large components printed, which quite significantly reduce the costs. It allowed us to choose where we wanted those machine metal parts. It allowed us to have something that's a composite. So what we have is something that's ultimately more lightweight. And obviously it gave us the ability to make some incremental changes on these parts to make some fine tweaks after punching the initial ones, make those fine alterations to obviously ultimately get a better result. Yeah.
So right now this one jig, how many cycles they can use? Because obviously it's used composite printing, but I believe previously the original design should be metal, I guess. So
look, it will only be a few thousand ultimately. So this particular product, we're doing batches of 100, and we'll do. We've actually got about 4 of these jigs for a few different variants of hole patterns, and we'll do a couple of thousand a year, and then they'll be punching parts for a few years. So it's not trying to replace a high volume punch tool that's pumping out thousands of parts a week. This is a lower volume, but it's still, it was a really good adaptation to technology for the volumes, because the product that we're punching is actually reasonably high value. So yeah, it worked out well.
I see. Okay, next question is I want to move on to the more industry focus, because you guys are definitely in the electronics manufacturing. And this webinar, we are talking to all the electronics people. So can I assume that actually there's some like specific standard in your industry for some of the cases that you have to meet, and maybe our material can help, or it could be improved? Any cases like this?
Look, the material itself, not so much. Look, we really see the printer as being a tool that helps us advance along the design journey in a quick and efficient manner, because you're getting feedback on your parts in a quick and reliable manner. I guess for us, one of the really important features of the printer is that we don't have to spend a lot of time optimizing the print to get a good print. Almost every print comes off at an appropriate quality for what we need to evaluate and determine and help us advance that design. As far as the standards that we work to, we're a little bit unique. We've recently passed AS9100 aerospace certification for both electronics design and manufacture, which puts us in a very, very small group in the country. There's only 4 electronics companies within the country who've got AS9100, and we're only aware of one other organisation who's got it for design and manufacturing, but they operate in an extremely narrow market segment, whereas we're operating across quite a broad range of market segments. So we're pretty uniquely placed from the certification side within the industry.
I see. And also another, actually is my last question, is recently we just launched the ESD material, the electrostatic dissipative material. Would you see any potential that could be applied in your current way of using Markforged?
As I understand, that material only runs on your large printers. If we had a large printer, we'd be running that material without a doubt. At this stage, we've only got a Mark II, so it's not available to us. But absolutely, we think it's an extremely useful and valuable material. And we'll actually be taking that into account looking forward in terms of our capital purchases on 3D printing equipment, so the availability of these. So we'll get other jigs machined for production, and they're always out of ESD safe material.
And I guess I'll just add to that, ESD is a very large part of making things in Intellidesign, something that's considered across all areas of the company. So, as Jonathan mentioned, it would be something that we'd be really interested in, because it would open up the 3D printer for usage in avenues that currently can't, because of limitations of the existing materials.
So some of the places you see ESD being really important in our business is, so as expected, all the work surfaces, flooring, all the equipment and resources within the facility have all got ESD protected measures. Every staff member every day needs to log and check their ESD wrist strap materials, and so we've got that all paperlessly logged and tracked. And if you don't check your wrist strap, you get warnings throughout the day and get progressively more persistent. So it really is, it's seen as a really important part of the business. It's something we take very seriously.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing, guys. I think that's so much about my side. Anthony?
And I have a few more questions. It just opens up more questions.
Thank you.
So I guess like I'm interested in one. Well, there's a couple of things. One, the state of electronics manufacturing in Australia and Brisbane. And do you sort of see any sort of macro changes with these sort of changes? And by the way, I'm aware that Lee Chen has to head off. So yeah, feel free to head off when you need to.
Thank you.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, okay, big question. A few parts to that. So we've definitely seen over the last couple of years a shift to onshoring of electronics manufacture in select industries. So there's a number of industries where it's really very important to have tighter control over the product. So certainly in the defence sector, but we're also seeing in other industries where organisations want to retain that higher level of sovereign capability to produce a product here within the country. And COVID certainly sped all of that up. In southeast Queensland, there's a definite upturn in the electronics industry, and that's been driven by some large defence projects that are currently going through. So Land 400, that's going through at the moment, it's certainly having an impact on the local electronics industry.
Yeah, it's interesting because people often talk about onshoring made in Australia, but it doesn't. There needs to be a proper business case around it. People don't do it just for no reason, right?
Yep.
So it is interesting to see what's actually happening there in the market and what the real drivers of onshoring are, and if they are related to supply chain, whether that be, as you say, high quality around the applications, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely around there. And the decisions aren't all cost driven, although we do get from time to time asked to bid on projects where the manufacturing could occur here or offshore. And we've been surprised at how competitive we are when you're comparing like for like. So definitely there is cost advantages in manufacturing in China. But depending on the volumes that you're manufacturing in and the variations that occur in a product that you make and how often you need to adjust that product to suit individual customer demands, it can become quite logistically challenging and difficult and expensive to do that in China. And so that's something we've definitely seen from our customers. Also, I think increasing security around the protection of the IP, but also of the data and, if you like, the ability to get remote access into devices, that's also become increasingly a significant issue for customers.
I think to touch a little bit more on what you said with, you mentioned kind of it briefly, I think something that we've seen quite a bit is the hedging of bets in project planning. And what you'll see is previously you might get going from the design phase through to a prototyping phase, you'll typically get a lot of those components accurately done offshore. But what we're seeing now is because of the uncertainty that comes with this period of time is that people will be a lot more interested in hedging their bets. So what they're doing is they'll be getting that traditional prototyping, going down that traditional prototyping avenue, but also getting a set of 3D printed prototypes. So previously the prototyping we get from the 3D printer would be something we use as a development piece in-house, maybe would be provided to the client. Now we're sort of seeing that I guess interest and need to actually provide potentially provide them with the quantity of 5 complete units in that phase, and sort of going down both of those avenues to ensure that should something pop up, whether that's locally or not locally, your sort of project plans are going to roll out and go with that.
Yeah, and I guess it's just about resilience as well. And the other interesting thing I've noticed with a lot of companies in these times is that sometimes there'll be massive demand, and companies simply can't keep up with that demand because they don't have that flexibility, and they're not sort of hedging their bets, as you say. So there can be sort of missed opportunity in that regard as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the question back to you. I mean, how's been the from Markforged's side? How are you finding the changing manufacturing pattern where people are doing work these days? Is that flying onto the work? And people are talking to you about getting printers and where you're having work done yourself?
Yeah, I think what COVID has done is sort of accelerate current trends, and I think that's that applies to the uptake of using 3D printers to replace machining, outsourcing, that sort of thing. So I guess it has people are becoming a lot more open-minded about how they manufacture things, because they know that if they don't innovate, they will likely not exist in a few years' time, or in a few months' time even. And there is a lot of talk about sort of resilience as well, and preparing for resilience. The other thing on a practical level that people are doing in terms of forcing working from home, the idea of manufacturing from home, has arisen.
All right.
So people are bringing their 3D printers home, and they're able to do their job. They're able to produce end-use parts, prototypes, whatever it may be, at home, rather than just being confined to like a digital workflow. They're able to produce physical parts. So yeah, there are some interesting sort of trends that are emerging, and I think just like a lot of things, people are learning of different ways to do things. Yeah. So yeah, I've visited you guys. I find you guys are very like a fascinating manufacturer, and it's really sort of interesting to see electronics manufacturing in Australia and how it's changing, especially given these times, and talking about onshoring and all that sort of stuff. So there are no more questions from me at this stage. Sure, I'll have more questions, in the future. But yeah, once again, like I'd like to thank you so much for joining us on this webinar. Yeah, all the best, and look forward to seeing what you're doing in the future.
That's right. No, a pleasure. No, I'm just going to thank Andrew and Mika here who set up cameras and stuff for us today to do this. So thank you. All good. Pleasure. Thank you, Anthony.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much, Scott.
All right, so that's all about the interview that we have with, sorry, put my camera back. Yeah, that's the interview we have with Intellidesign. And last but not the least, before we go for Q&A, that if you got a chance to want to know more about food and beverage and how to apply for additive manufacturing, and please register now. And below is the link to join our second webinar, the webinar series. The second webinar is talking about 3D printing in the food and beverage. Cool. So now we are open for questions. So maybe Anthony, you can online, then we see what question that we have, because I can't see that very well. Oh, you actually answered most of it already online. But we can, but we can read it through, make sure that everyone can are aware. So first question, is the presentation being available afterwards? The answer is yes. The on-demand webinar will be available within a week. So you can come to us and we'll share that with you. Second question from Madan, how cost effective for aerospace parts and the material property? So Anthony, you want to take that answer verbally again?
I can just read that answer out. So the best way to evaluate the cost of a 3D printed part is to go to eiger.io. That's our in-browser slicing software, and to create a free account and upload your STL. The software will then give you a cost and time so that you can compare that to your current costs.
Right. Can Onyx CSD be used in Mark II printer? I see Alan already replies that. Alan,
Yes.
on the mic and reply that verbally again.
Sure. So Ellen said that Onyx ESD is only available on our industrial series printers. You can email our applications team to discuss your application and return on investment. And that email is apac.ae@markforged.com.
Right. Okay, the next one, Roshan is asking, how stable are the 3D printer parts over time, particularly in high humidity environment?
Just trying to find that question.
Yeah, Alan, you're here, right?
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of our customers actually use our part for quite long-term application, even end use or production part application. But it really depends on the environment that you want and the expectation, right? So again, it would be best if we can have a more in-depth discussion. So I would suggest you to send your application to, again, the apac.ae@markforged.com, so we can look in details and check out how feasibility that our printer part can last for your application.
Right. Okay, and Rodibeth asking, are there any non-static bracket ESD safe material to print with? Anthony, you typed it already. Want to answer that again?
Yeah, sure. So basically, our most used material is Onyx, which is a combination of nylon and chopped carbon fiber, which isn't designed for ESD requirements. We have a separate material called Onyx ESD, which has been designed specifically for ESD safe applications.
Right. And the next one, besides ESD control during manufacture and assembly, is anybody using this material for final enclosures? Alan?
Yeah. So yes, the material is relatively new, but we do have a lot of customers use our Onyx material for, again, production or low medium volume production or manufacturing. So that's able to use as a final product material, same as ESD. So we would love to learn about your idea or your application, so we can see if it's really good fit. So again, please contact us, and then we can discuss in details.
Right, then we go for the open questions that we haven't answered yet. So let's go one by one. So one question from Chi Chao. He's asking that, I guess this webinar is basically about 3D printing of polymer, metal, and composite for electronics industry. Very interesting to see that 3D printing can use the electronics industry in many aspects. Thank you very much. And what about the 3D printing for electronics devices, for example, semiconductors, thin conductive, non-conductive films, supporting structures? Do you have any comments? Is Markforged interested in this field?
I will take this. So Mark's right now, we focus more in polymer materials. Some of the things that you mentioned could be but most of it is more like actually the semiconductor devices, which is not currently in Markforged focus. But we definitely continue to develop new technology. But as of today, it is not what Markforged is pursuing right now.
Right. Geoff asked another question on top of his just now the question, that if used as an enclosure material, is there any impact on wireless absorption? Example, if there is a Wi-Fi part inside the enclosure?
Yeah, we do have some data on our material, such as dielectric and other parameters that we can share with you. So yeah, we can discuss in details and what kind of like application or like parts that you want to actually print.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think it's, if not mistaken, our material is actually radio translucent, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Gluto, sorry if I I don't really understand how to pronounce that. He asked that, thanks for the sharing, that really keen to understand what certifications that Markforged really has here in Australia and in Canada. So do we have any certification about our material or printers?
I think our printer has gone through most of the certification process, and we partner with a BV for some of the testing. So we do have some certification that we can share with you. So please contact our sales or application engineer, then we can share you all these documents.
Right. Okay. Another one, Rodney Broadcasting, is the Onyx ESD likely to be available for the Mark II printer in the future?
So I'll take that too. For what we see is customer printing Onyx ESD normally have a little bit higher expectation, such as like the dimensions or repeatability, and they want to have a bit more like confidence, right, in the parts that I've printed. So currently we have the ESD material only available in our industrial series because we have a better system, a better control, and we're adding more features to make sure the part come out of our industrial series printer has the best quality in terms of material, readability, accuracy. So currently I don't see we have a plan of getting the ESD material to our desktop series. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, next question from Tien, our friend from Vietnam. If using CFF such as carbon fiber, is there any effect to the ESD characteristics?
Yeah, so the CFF, the contains fiber material is normally embedded inside of the part, so it won't affect the surface, surface conductivity or the resistance value of our ESD part.
Yeah, that's right. And lastly, David is asking, are there any other polymers to be released other than nylon-based material, such as PE from Markforged?
Yeah, Markforged continue to develop new product and technology and materials, but I can't tell you right now what will be the coming material. Thanks for the feedback. I will definitely give that to our R&D team.
Cool. That's all the questions that we have, and I see someone raised their hand, but if you do have question, please use this Q&A so that we can see your questions. Right, I don't see any further questions, so it's still about, yeah, just nice 11 o'clock. So yeah, we will end this webinar, and again, thank you so much for everyone joining this webinar. Take 1 hour to stay here to listen about the development and sharing from Markforged, and looking forward to see everyone in the next webinar about food and beverage. Talk to you soon.